Well, you have it. One big, beautiful bill signed into law by President Donald Trump on July 4th, 2025. Today's July 7th, 2025. I am going to do my best to just bring up some of the more salient points in this tax law. And I stress tax law because this law that was passed does a whole lot more and impacts a whole lot more than tax. It really kind of changes the entire direction of our country, in my opinion, for better or for worse. We all have our different opinions. This is a lot bigger than your average tax bill. It was very different than your average tax bill. It passed the House after passing the Senate without being changed one bit in record time by only a margin of 2 votes. The vote was 214 to 218. Barely carried it, barely carried the Senate, got through the Senate with the help of Vice President J.D. Vance being the tiebreaker vote. But it is a law. Whether you think it's big and beautiful or not, again, I'll leave that up to you and your opinions. It is a big bill, and it's got a lot of good tax stuff in it that I personally believe will be great for our country, great for our economy, and great for our clients. I'm going to go through some of the salient points and try to keep this to much less time than is needed to go through this entire bill. I do want to warn you, as I've been researching the internet the last couple of days, seeing what other people are saying about this bill, there's already a lot of misinformation on it. Um, we're not going to know the entirety of how this law gets enacted until Treasury regulations are written in the next year or so, but we know the basics, and I'm going to get into some of them. First and foremost, 100% bonus depreciation is not only back, it is permanent. Its effective date, anything bought after January 19th, 2025 is eligible for bonus depreciation, the same kind of material that used to be able to, or asset classes that were eligible for bonus depreciation before we started phasing out of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act in 2017 are now eligible again and eligible forever. I say forever. Laws always change, but it literally will take an act of Congress to remove this because the law was made permanent and signed by President Trump last July 4th. Happy Independence Day, business owners. In that, there's some new things for bonus depreciation. And forgive me, I am reading off a screen while I'm speaking to you, so I know my eyes are supposed to stay focused at you guys, but this is too much material. I have all memorized. I'm referencing the tax bill itself. Let me tell you about this big tax bill. It is 870 pages. 870 pages. And it's not written in layman's terms. It's written in lawyer speak and congressional terminology. It is very different from most bills I have read in so many ways. One big one is I'm just going to read you the chapter 2, the title of the chapter of the bill, Delivering on Presidential Priorities to Provide New Middle Class Tax Relief. It was a very partisan bill. I don't think it needed to be partisan, but it became that way. But let's get back to what's in it. So not only is bonus depreciation back for assets that have a 20-year useful life or less, it's back for qualified production property. These are factories, manufacturing assemblies, chip making assembly factories that cost billions of dollars to build sometimes. And generally, people would have to depreciate those over 39 years straight line. Now, if they're a qualified production facility here in the United States, instead of 39 years, people like Texas Instrument, Intel, those people can build new, beautiful, job-producing properties, helping to make us more secure, help to eliminate our trade deficits. They can be made, built, and deducted in the first year. On top of that, they increased the 179 deduction limitations. We don't use Section 179 a lot, and we won't a lot with bonus depreciation. There are times to use it and times that it makes sense. That goes beyond the scope of this video, though. But we do have increased Section 179 limits, also permanent. Now, the state and local tax cap has been changed. If you remember back in before 2017, people who lived in high income tax states like New York, California, Illinois, they could deduct 100% of the income tax and property tax they paid to their states on their federal tax return. The Tax Cut and Jobs Act reduced that to only $10,000. My partner Kevin and I disagree greatly on this. I love that. I didn't think we should increase it again because I don't think states like people like me in Texas who don't pay an income tax, who have a state assembly that knows how to balance our budget, I don't think we should subsidize the politicians in California and Illinois and New York and other high tax states who can't balance their budgets, but they don't want to be held accountable to their constituents. So they lobbied, and unfortunately, they won a reasonable carve out. For the next 4 years, it's not $10,000 anymore, it's $40,000. Standard deduction has been increased and is made permanent. It's not going to revert back to the pre-Tax Cut and Jobs Act like it was going to revert after 2025. Let's get to some of the other of the presidential desires that were put in this bill. There is a deduction now for tip income. Basically, the first $25,000 someone makes in tips, they're not going to pay any tax on unless they make over $150,000 as a single filer or $300,000 as a married filing individual. It's limited to only $25,000. You get paid more than $25,000 in tips. Well, anything more than $25,000, you're going to pay tax on. Overtime pay. Overtime pay is now, well, there's a deduction for it, but it basically makes it non-taxable unless you make too much money. And the limit is $25,000 of overtime pay to be non-taxable, and also phases out at the same income thresholds as tip income. If you don't know, assuming no law was passed, the tax rates that were created in the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act were going to expire at the end of this year. No longer. They have been made permanent. They are permanent law and will remain in effect until Congress changes them and a president signs the new law, or Congress is able to override a veto from a president. Where the top marginal tax bracket now is 37%. It's not going back to 39.6. Qualified business income deduction. I was excited when I read the House version of this. It was going to go up to 23%, which is really going to help put small businesses on parity with big international businesses. The Senate brought it back down to 20%, and that's how it got passed into law. But it is permanent. This is permanent. It's not going away. Research and development expenditures now are again permanent. You are allowed to deduct them like every other first world and second world nation. Our businesses can deduct R&D expenditures again. They're no longer required to capitalize them like they were for the last few years or couple of years. They can deduct them. They can elect to amortize them if they want, but they also can deduct them. That's going to be a boom, I think, for new creation of new products, of new technology coming out of this country. Again, all of these rules follow the Make America Great Again methodology, where it needs to be American, needs to be American made. Your expenditures need to be spent in America to Americans. I like it. It's back. Thank you for that. Congress, Mr. President, and on to the next thing. The estate and gift tax exemption was going to go back down to as low as $5 million. Unless a new law was passed this year, and a new law was indeed passed, and it is going to be $15 million. Each individual can leave $15 million of their hard-earned money that they've accumulated and already paid a lot of taxes on in their lifetime. They can leave that to their heirs, or give it away in their lifetime, or a combination of both. 15 million, that is permanent. It will be indexed for inflation, going up year after year. I also believe, and just want to point out, this is going to help a lot in the family farms, especially here in Texas. We see a lot of multi-generational farms and ranches that when the people who own it currently die and want to leave it to the heirs ended up having to sell off that farm just to pay estate taxes. This helps them out. The real big ones still have a problem, but as long as it's worth 15 million or less, or 30 million if it's a husband and wife who own it and they like to share their exemption, and plan to do that, then most small family-run farms and ranches, and not even small, I mean, we're talking thousands of acres, should qualify in that, depending on where the ranch is. The one's really close to Fort Worth, maybe only 100 acres. Here's one that is awesome. I think it's a boon for the future of our country. It's a boon for areas that are economically distressed. It is a re-implementation, renewal, and made permanent qualified opportunity zone um, investment regime. Basically, this is going to the localities that are poor or need some economic development. If people have a taxable gain from they sold stock, they sold a business, and they don't want to pay taxes on it, they are now incentivized to invest in these opportunity zones. And if they do so, they can defer their taxes for 5 years and then pay some, if not all, the taxes they deferred. But then if they make an investment on top of that in an opportunity zone, as long as they hold it for 10 years, when they sell, any gain is going to be tax free. This is a big change, though, from the old opportunity zone law because this is permanent. Used to be we had very specific dates we were dealing with between 2025 and 2020. Bunch of weird stuff. This just says the new law you can defer it for 5 years. If you hold it for 10 years, there's no weird artificial dates that make that that complicate it. It allows people to mitigate their taxes, invest in opportunity zones, and help grow the economy in those opportunity zones. And the new opportunity zones are going to be created sometime in 2026. I think it was July something of 2026. And then every 10 years after that, states will be able to figure out their new opportunity zones. There are rules for that. Basically, I don't want to get too much of the detail, but it helps less advantaged people in the economy is the intent. A big improvement on small business stock, Section 1202 stock. We've increased the amount that people are able to invest in a startup business. It's got to be structured right. Talk to your tax advisor, and perhaps sell it in the future date completely tax free, up to 5 times of whatever it was that they got it for. Um, Let me move on, but man, that's a good thing. If you are starting a business, if you're thinking about starting a new business, the tax benefits of doing well with it, even though you're taking on a ton of risk by starting a new business, the tax benefits, if you do it right through 1202 of the Internal Revenue Code, you can save a lot of money in taxes. Um, there's this excess business loss rule that's been around since 2017. It's been a headache for a lot of our clients and us tax strategists who try to help our clients mitigate taxes on big income years. It has now been made permanent. There will be a limit. It will be indexed for inflation. For instance, in 2025, I think someone can start a new business or be working on or trying to turn around a new business and take up to $630,000 loss to offset their income from other businesses or other areas in their life, but no more than that. However, they also made permanent that first year, any excess business losses get carried forward, but they will carry forward as net operating losses and can be used in future years. I love this one. The 1099 rule threshold has been increased dramatically. For way too many years, if you paid anyone over $600 during the year, and if unless they were a corporation, in most cases you had to issue them a 1099, that number has not been indexed for inflation or change for many, many, many years. Well, now it's been increased to $2,000. I'd like to see it go higher, but it's $2,000 is that limit now. Auto interest deduction. You can now deduct your auto interest if you're here in the US, if you bought an American car or a car here in America, and you don't make too much money, you can deduct your auto loan interest just like most people can deduct their mortgage interest. And on that mortgage interest, they made the cap of 750,000 of finance mortgage interest being the max that you can deduct. You can't go buy $2 million homes and deduct all the interest. It's been 750 for a while, but that was going to expire. It's now permanent. But what they also did is they took out the ability for people to use home equity line of credit, HELOC interest, and deduct that also as mortgage interest. So if you're using a HELOC for personal expenditures, you're not going to be able to deduct that interest anymore. If you are using your home equity to fund and borrow money to grow a business, well, that's business interest. You ought to be deducting that on that business's return. You can. Talk to your tax strategist and prepare on how to do that, but you ought to be able to. Child tax credit has been made permanent. This is a big deal, and it's been increased to $2,200. It is indexed for inflation, and that's where it's going to be from here on out until Congress changes their new laws passed. 529 accounts, these were accounts that people put into like retirement accounts basically, but for their children's future education. Used to only be higher education you could use this money for. What's been changed now in the law is you can use it for elementary school, high school. You can use it to help your children go to school. If you think the public school system is not it's not a safe place to send your kids and you need help, you can use that 529 money to send them there. I wish they would have changed the name of this, but it is still the Trump accounts. Trump accounts are a cool deal. I'm going to read some of the detail from here, but the basics are this is incentivizing people to not be dependent on the government. It's incentivizing us, parents of children, to help our children start to have an investment account that they can eventually use for buying a new home, or heck, if they can save their money and not use it for school or medical bills in the future, they have a retirement home, so when they turn 65, if Social Security happens to even be talked about in those days and still exists, they won't be dependent on it. They'll have money. There's caps. You can put $5,000 a year per child into these things. If you don't have the money to put in for your kids, and I like this part, it's children whose parents can't afford to create investment accounts that are most likely going to still be dependent on the government at some point in their future life. Well, guess what? The government will provide $1,000 for the next 5 years into their accounts for them if you ask for the credit. And what I'm glad the government or the Congress did this time, but if they find anyone asking for this money for their children and they're doing it fraudulently, the penalties are very stiff. So hopefully that'll limit the fraud on this money for kids in their Trump accounts. And they're literally called Trump accounts. Um, there's a lot of more stuff I wanted to get into. It's too good to not talk a lot about. Um, but I'm going to save it for brevity. I'm not going to go into too much more detail, but there's great stuff for residential construction. There's great stuff that fixed bills where businesses now weren't able to deduct their interest and they had to add back or had to deduct depreciation before they figured out how much interest they could deduct. They don't have to do that now. If you're building residential homes, you don't have to use, no matter how big you are, the percentage of completion method. You don't have to recognize income on homes you're building that you haven't sold yet. They've really improved that area of the tax law a lot. They did take out the we were hoping the threshold for small businesses, the gross receipts test that have to be forced to go to an accrual accounting versus cash accounting. In the original House bill, that was going to go up to 80 million. It is not changed at all in this new law. It's going to go up, but hopefully they'll fix that in another new tax law. There's better credits and even refundable credits now if you're adopting children. Hopefully that improves adoption. They took away the opportunity for non-citizens or non-legal residents to get uh, student credits, basically college credits, the American Opportunity and Lifetime Learning credits. You have to have a Social Security number to be able to get that. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of other changes to things like Medicaid, but I'm not going to that. That's not really an impact on tax. You can check out someone else's podcast to learn about that or read about it later. I'm going to leave it at here at this. This is the One Big Beautiful Bill, which it is literally titled on the law. I'm not calling it that because I think it's big and beautiful, even though it is big and parts of it are beautiful. That is the title of this new law. It's the law of the land. Boy, us tax strategists, CPAs, tax attorneys are going to have a lot of fun with this over the next 6 months as we learn how to utilize this for the benefit of our clients and taxpayers so we can keep more money in the economy, grow our economy, and not let it get flushed down the toilet with our government. Thank you very much. Continue to follow Hidden Money. If you have questions and your tax strategist or preparer aren't able to help you with these things, check us out at hiddenmoney.com or revotaxpayer.com. Thank you.